now that we've drawn animals, moving forms, we're going to move on to people. People also move. And the best way to capture any object in motion is through a gestural line, as you would probably expect at this point. Where are you going to observe people? Well, where you can observe animals or parks, you can also observe people in parks. Mass transit situations, buses, trains, cafes. Uh, you know, musicians are excellent to watch because they tend to stand still except for certain parts of their bodies moving, usually their hands and arms. And then if your sketch is really good, you can give it to them and they can use it on their CD cover. But today, what I'm going to do is work from photographs. And I should just say that in sketching people, you want to just use some common sense with gauging the situation. So I'll talk maybe a little bit more about that as I sketch. Okay, so this is a vintage photograph from my mother's side of the family. And we'll work first with this photo of a distant cousin of mine. And she's a little girl in a dress in a swing. Okay, so you're going to need to learn some things about proportion. Most people are 7.5 heads tall. So if you measure the head, include the head, most adult humans are between 7.5 heads tall. So you have someone in your home environment you want to test that out with, that can be a fun thing to do. Just face each other and count how many heads tall you each are. Men are going to tend to be a little more than women. Ethnicity can affect that, age can affect that. So a child is not going to be 7.5 heads tall. And she's sitting. So I'm going to work now with my Pigma pen, and I'm going to use the thicker one, the number 1. And if you feel like you need to work with pencil first, then that's fine. I'm going to work with pen first, okay, and you can see it more clearly. So I'm going to get her whole body in my drawing. We tend to fixate on the face. This isn't a portrait lesson. This is a figure lesson. So I'm going to get just the basic shape, and I already think I need to go maybe, well, that's okay. That's all right. We'll get a sense for her being on the swing. Okay, so I've got kind of an oval, and then her little shoulders. She's get a sense for a little fist right there. The torso. The dress is flowing down. Okay, she's got little feet coming down here. She's got one leg I'm noticing is a little further back. She's bracing her body more with that foot than with this one. Okay? And then I've got, like I talked about last week, you're going to have to be able to depict planes even when you're drawing people. And here's a case in point. We've got to draw the little slab of the plank of wood that makes the swing, and there's the chains going up. And I'm using again that plumb line, the side of my paper, to run parallel to. Okay? Alright, so I've got, in a very quick, gestural way, just the basic figure. Okay, no details, no face, just the essence of the body. And it may help you to run like a pencil line down the middle of the body. Human beings and most animals are bilaterally symmetrical, so that you keep one side similar to the other. So I'm going to go in and just start to get more detail on her form. Hands and feet are hard. Keep the detail really loose there. I'm just getting a sense for her fingers wrapping around that chain without getting into a lot of detail. I'm just trying to get a feeling for, her arms are kind of chubby. They've got that little kid chubbiness. Now I'm getting up into her face. And children's faces have different proportions than adults. Their eyes tend to be really big still. Our eyes don't grow much when we're babies. So, in fact, they've done studies of that, and large eyes are read as cute. Like there's that whole line of greeting cards that has animals that are with big eyes. And you see that in the manga industry in Asia. I'll talk a little bit more about proportions of the face and how you draw the face, but don't get too caught up in the face. And because you're really working on the figure. When I'm sketching on buses and trains, it's more the whole body that I try to capture than the likeness in the face. I'm lucky if they are in my view long enough that I do get some likeness, and sometimes I do. Sometimes, if you can do a sustained drawing and the person is patient with you, sometimes it takes several tries to get a person's likeness. You have to warm up, and then when you get it, you'll know. You'll just say, I caught it. I caught him. Okay, now I'm getting it. And just like with the fingers, I'm just going to imply the toes. We tend to make feet too small. Feet are as big as your hand. And your hand's as big as your face. Usually. Now, if there is some time, I can go in and try to add a little value. Give her a little bit of shading. See, the sun is overhead. Sense for this being, it's like a lynx. Okay, and See how I did that line right there, and that gave a feeling for the dress, the folds of the dress. I'm going to add a plane here so this looks more three-dimensional. That plank that she's sitting on. And then just so she doesn't look like she's floating in space, I'm going to add a shadow under her like I see in the photo. And notice that the shadow keeps that same planar structure. And right away when you put a shadow under something, it's not floating. It's placed in a location now. She's outdoors. And look where the shadow lines up underneath. Notice the shadow is moving at like the opposite angle of well, not on this side, but more on this side. Well, it's not opposite, it's just slanted a little. Shadows are, depending on the angle of the sun, they're going to distort. Okay, so that's it. Little girl on the swing. Now, obviously, a child is not going to stay frozen like a snapshot. Oops.